Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this webinar, Affirmations for Self-Healing. And of course, we are broadcasting from the Ananda Monastery in India. We're happy to be with you again. And so we will start by reading from this week's affirmation from the book, Affirmations for Self-Healing. This week's topic is generosity. Most people think of generosity as merely the giving of material benefits to others. More important, however, and much more satisfying, is a generous spirit, a willingness to let the other person shine, even if it means being eclipsed oneself, a happiness in his good fortune, even if it means personal loss for oneself, a concern for his safety, even if in an accident one's own property has been destroyed. Generosity means, above all, recognizing that everything we have and are belongs to God alone and is His to dispose of where He will. So now please join me in the affirmation. We can do the affirmation out loud this first time. I am happy in the good fortune of all, even more than in my own. For in my happiness for them lies inner freedom. And now say this in a normal voice. I am happy in the good fortune of all, even more than in my own. For in my happiness for them lies inner freedom. And now repeat in a whisper. I am happy in the good fortune of all, even more than in my own. For in my happiness for them lies inner freedom. Now mentally taking it into the subconscious mind. I am happy in the good fortune of all, even more than in my own. For in my happiness for them lies inner freedom. And now one more time, mentally taking this into the superconscious mind. I am happy in the good fortune of all, even more than in my own. For in my happiness for them lies inner freedom. And the prayer that Swamiji has given us. All that I have and am is thine. Divine Mother, dispose of it as thou willst. Om. I'll now hand it over to Brahmachari Vineet.
Thank you, Jemal, for the beautiful reading from Swamiji's book, Affirmations for Self-Healing. This is a very beautiful topic, as I've been thinking more and more about it, especially today, about generosity. And as Swamiji says, shares with us in this affirmation, the reading actually, he shares that it's not just about material things, it's much more and more to do with the spirit of generosity. And when Jamal was reading the affirmation, it struck to me that it may seem like, wait a second, I do think about myself more than others. It's not that easy to think about the good fortune of all the time. What about me? What should I do about this? So I'm happy in the good fortune of all, even more than in my own. Now that becomes a bit too much. But, we find that when we try something slowly, it may seem like, let's say when we were a year old or 6 months old, walking would have seemed like a big task, or speaking would have seemed like a big task. But we made it by first, the toddler steps, and then fell a few times, and then now we walk pretty much fine and we don't need that much help. So similarly, when it comes to the act of generosity, it is something which we get into bit by bit by bit by doing it. And as Swamiji says, it's not just about material possessions. It may even be about, I was thinking about this more today, just a different way to look at it was, let's say we are in a communication with a friend or a family member, and we are having, difference of opinion or divergent views on a particular thing. Generosity over there, if it is not relating to truth, because if it is something which is about dharma and to truth, then yes, we have to, stay firm and we have to uphold what it is. But if it is something very trivial and not very important, then true generosity in such a situation could be to have the other person have the last word. And how does it matter whether, he's right or wrong? At least you have their friendship at the end of the day. There was an incident when Paramhans Yogananda met Mahatma Gandhi, and Mahatma Gandhi ji, as we all know, was when think of the word ahimsa, that's what the first name that strikes in our mind is Mahatma Gandhi. And he was asked the question that, when, let's say, to what extreme can one follow the principle of ahimsa, where one to, a madman enter into a village with a gun and start shooting people, what would you do? And Gandhi said, oh, I would be the first person to stand before he shoots everyone else. Well, the logical next question would be that, well, he'll shoot you and then he'll shoot the rest of the people in the village, and what good it is to anyone. But, Yogananji have had him have the last word, and well, the obvious question would have been, or the obvious solution would have been, why not one life instead of lives of hundreds of innocent people? But then again, he didn't feel any need to correct anyone. He didn't feel the need to act like, oh no, I know better or anything like that. And that is where generosity comes from, to have the other person shine even at the cost of our own. And there was one story which I was reminded again of Paramhans Yogananda ji, that this is, even though it has to do with material possessions, it really has to do with the spirit behind what he did. And this was basically when he was in America and he walked into a store to buy an umbrella, a cane, I think maybe a cane or an umbrella, something, but it is to do either one of those. And being having to do, because he was going to spend the money of the organization, he did his best to bargain this shopkeeper down to a reasonable amount. And then after, whatever the bargaining was, uh, the whatever price he got, it was a very good price, when he felt like, yeah, this is the price I can get. And then his eyes fell on around, after he had done this deal, he looked around at the shop and he saw that the shopkeeper's shop was not in a very good condition. In fact, the carpet wasn't looking that good, and there was just, he could have used more money, is what Yogananji came to a conclusion with. And then he ended up giving him more money than he had even bargained in the first place. And it might seem like, wait a second, that's silly. But no, that was not silly. He was acting from a spirit of generosity, from an act of giving, and from an act of just looking into the well-being of others. And when he later on came, the other person was so touched by his generosity that the shopkeeper, he told, sir, you're a gentleman. And he ended up giving him another cane as a gift. And when Yogananji came back and he spoke with his disciples about it, he said that, his shop didn't look in a good condition. Maybe I would buy him a carpet or something like that. And that was the spirit of generosity he had. Again, it's not to do with material possessions, but just with the spirit of it. Swami Kriyananda used to say that it is blessed to give than to receive. And then he used to say, blessed because blissful. And just 20 minutes before, we started this webinar, I finished a meeting with about 13 or 40, maybe 15 Guru Bhais, and we had hosted a retreat for various people who were associated with the Hindi courses to learn Kriya Yoga in Hindi. And this retreat was Hindi. All the mentors were Hindi speaking mentors. And it was last weekend, and this weekend was just to share about it and to just look at the glow and just the bliss in each one's face. Everyone were able to see in each other's eyes the highest, the most profound, and the most divine in each one of us. And everyone had to really, let go of their personal schedule. They had to really make time. They had to really prepare for it, and even let go of, what they wanted to share, but rather what was needed of me to serve these participants who are there in the retreat. And I could just see everyone, and it was just like, wow, just serving can change everyone so much. And again, it was the spirit of generosity. It was the spirit of giving. One of the founding principles of Ananda, when Swami Kriyananda ji started Ananda, was people are more important than things. And when we keep that in mind, the generosity which comes is just automatic. It doesn't have to be, calculated, that am I getting good karma by doing this, am I doing am I going to get what I'm giving. No, just people are more important than things. And when we come from that perspective, automatically we are in the mode of giving and giving and giving to people. And just this last story I want to share before I pass it over to. Do I have time? I think, yeah. Before I pass it on to Jamal, is that there was a time when there was a member in Ananda village in California who was just very negative about Swami Kriyananda, and he would always find reasons to, cut him short or find wrong in whatever he was doing, and he was just not a very positive influence in the community. And when people would ask him, like, why do you have to do that? And he would just say that, someone has to point out at the mistakes and be practical in this world. And well, the truth is, well, what good did it do to him? Not much. But in any case, he also, when you live in a community, there are some common expenses you incur, and he would never pay his community dues for years. And finally, one of the community managers told him, when a new community manager told him that, it's time for you to either start paying or you have to unfortunately leave the community. And he got so furious upon the community members, and then he just wanted to have it out with Swami Kriyananda. And he had it out with Swami Kriyananda for 1 hour straight. He went on and on about what, bad leader Swamiji was, how misleading he was. I don't know the details of it, but just he kept at it, and Swamiji just didn't utter a word. He didn't correct him. He didn't feel the need to defend himself. He was just like, let him have the say if he has to. And then this is the most sweet story. Afterwards, when this gentleman left, there was one more person who was in that room. And this conversation was not at all directed towards him, but the conversation was directed towards Swamiji. But the very negativity of it was just so, it shook him in many ways. And Swami Kriyananda, instead of thinking about himself, that, oh, I had this 1 hour of negativity, he was in turn giving bliss to this other person who was just an audience in this room when this other person was negative. And then he basically shared a little with this other gentleman who is still in Ananda and remembers this incident. And then he went on to write one of the most beautiful compositions. He wrote so many beautiful musics, and this was one of them which he wrote. And how just, whatever came, he just transmuted it into a very uplifting, positive pose. So friends, let's do that in our lives too. Let's keep thinking of what I can give rather than what am I getting. Maybe if it's on the in a big plate, there are 10 gulab jamuns or laddus. Maybe don't think of, I'll have the last one. Maybe just let's start little by little, and it can transmute to bigger things in our life. With that, I would like to pass on to Jamal.
Thanks, Vineet. As I was thinking about what to speak about this evening, one thing I was thinking about was gulab jamuns, which is just so interesting because it can seem that we, give away the last one or whatever. We give them to our children and we don't have any of them, and we think of ourselves, okay, I'm such a generous person. I've given this to people who want it more than me. But I've realized in my own life that then maybe the next day there's a plate of them again and I'm racing for them. trying to make up for it. I thought that I had this generous spirit, and yet somehow there's desires that are lurking there in the background, and it's not an easy thing actually to get rid of these desires. Um, in the reading here that we did, as well as in the prayer, I'll read the prayer again. Swamiji says, "All that I have and am is thine. Divine Mother, dispose of it as thou wilt." And when I first heard those lines, especially that word dispose, that was a little scary to me, of thinking, oh gosh, she's going to throw away first my thought was all the gulab jamuns and all of the physical things that I'm attached to in this world. But then as you take this deeper, that's really what Divine Mother is going to get rid of, is all of our desires, that keeps us reincarnating again and again and keeps us bound. But then, finally, thankfully, I took this even a little bit deeper, and instead of being afraid of that word dispose, that Divine Mother is going to dispose of everything I have and everything I am, I embraced that word, because I understood that Divine Mother knows what she's doing, and she's taking away things slowly, one by one, in the right manner. She knows the ones that I just, wouldn't be okay with right now, that it would just be too much. And so she slowly takes this thing away, takes that thing away, gives this thing. But Divine Mother knows what she's doing, and slowly this is all pointing towards God realization, to the point where we will be able to have absolutely nothing for ourselves. I don't even know if this relates, but Swamiji said that even breathing is a habit. But it's almost, you could say, a desire, another attachment. And when you start thinking, oh my gosh, what are you talking about here? I have to get rid of that? That seems pretty intense. But somehow the saints have enough love for God that they are able to let go of absolutely everything. And they are able to realize that they are not this little physical body, that they always have been part of this vast ocean of infinite bliss. And it's another part of this affirmation that as we learn how to be happy in the good fortune of all, that we can release this hold that the ego has on us, that if we're happy, more happy for them, well, I apologize for that, but there's not much I can do about it. The internet seemed to go, but it came right back. Um, yes, so if we're even more happy for others than we are for ourselves, then somehow again, and it's a slow process, obviously, but the this grip the ego has, it starts to loosen. And we see that there's some secret power that's actually giving us what we need when we need it, and we don't need to worry about it. Two stories are in my mind right now. The first is Mahatma Gandhi, since Vineet brought him up. When he lived in South Africa, he was running, I believe, to board a train, and he was wearing chappals, slippers. And in the process of running and jumping up on the train, one chappal was left on the platform, and he was wearing one. And immediately, he took the one that he was wearing and threw it towards the one on the platform as the train was speeding away. And I'm sure you understand the point of this story is that two good Sam just sitting on the train and thinking, oh, poor me, I only have one sandal now, and it's not good for anybody. And as Vineet was saying, it's this attitude. And the fascinating thing about that story is that Mahatma Gandhi, probably through years of practice, perhaps lifetimes, of not being selfish, thought of the right thing to do right in the moment. Whereas maybe someone else without all of that training would think, oh, poor me, and then the train would be gone, and then it's worthless for everyone. It's just a nice example of the attitude. I was very touched by that story when a man in Chennai told me that story. The other story that was in my mind is that of Saint Francis, and obviously his creed was poverty, and he had one possession other than, of course, the robe that he wore, and that was his Bible. And I believe there was an old blind woman who was needing food, and so he gave the Bible so that she could sell it and buy some food. But it was a very painful thing for him to do because he felt that he had given away God's word and that he wanted to hold on to God. Yes, he was willing to give away all physical possessions, but if he had to have one thing, he wanted to have God. And now he felt that he had given away God's word, but that he then, after he did that, because, and this is on a subtle level, but he was thinking of giving God to others. And it's an interesting story because the lady was blind. She wasn't going to be able to read it. She was only going to sell it for food. But then he was left without God. But for her, that little bit of joy also is God. And so he felt he was giving away God. But when we do that, then God comes into our lives. And so he felt a voice in his heart. I don't remember the exact words, but something like, "You have me in your heart, St. Francis." So there's absolutely nothing to worry about. That you know, once we reach that level that it can't be, we're not worried about giving something away like in this physical world, that it might not come back in this physical world. That we have something that's eternal on the inside, that we can eternally share with all. And this was the thing that I loved the most about Swami Kriyananda, is his desire to want to share, yes, joy with everyone, but he realized that God is joy, and he wanted to share that consciousness with others and help them realize who they truly were. I'll tell you one more very interesting thing, and then I'll go. And that is, Swamiji said, all desires have to be fulfilled. And I have a desire to help every human being achieve God realization. And I chewed on that one for a really long time. I'll let you do the same, and I'll hand it back over to Vineet, and he can guide us through the affirmation again. Thank you.
Thank you, Jamal. Well, I wasn't sure if I should chew on that idea or should I read the affirmation. It was beautiful. Okay, let's do the reading again and then we'll do the affirmation this time. But this time we'll do it multiple number of times. We'll repeat it 3 times out loud, then in a normal voice thrice, then in a whisper, then mentally taking to the subconscious, and then mentally taking to the superconscious. So let's center ourselves and listen to these words of Swamiji. Most people think of generosity as merely the giving of material benefits to others. More important, however, and much more satisfying is a generous spirit, a willingness to let the other person shine, even if it means being eclipsed oneself, a happiness in his good fortune, even if it means personal loss for oneself, a concern for his safety, even if in an accident one's own property has been destroyed. Generosity means, above all, recognizing that everything we have and are belongs to God alone and is His to dispose of where He will. It's interesting, I notice now that the last sentence of the reading and the prayer is dispose of, where it is to do with the word dispose, which Jamal was sharing about. Let's do the affirmation. First out loud, I am happy in the good fortune of all, even more than in my own. For in my happiness for them lies inner freedom. I am happy in the good fortune of all, even more than in my own. For in my happiness for them lies inner freedom. I am happy in the good fortune of all, even more than in my own. For in my happiness for them lies inner freedom. Now, in a normal voice, I am happy in the good fortune of all, even more than in my own. For in my happiness for them lies inner freedom. I am happy in the good fortune of all, even more than in my own. For in my happiness for them lies inner freedom. Now, repeating the last time in a normal voice, I am happy in the good fortune of all, even more than my own. For in my happiness for them lies inner freedom. Now, in a whisper, I am happy in the good fortune of all, even more than in my own. For in my happiness for them lies inner freedom. I am happy in the good fortune of all, even more than in my own. For in my happiness for them lies inner freedom. I am happy in the good fortune of all, even more than in my own. For in my happiness for them lies inner freedom. Now, repeating mentally, taking to the subconscious mind, I am happy in the good fortune of all, even more than in my own. For in my happiness for them lies inner freedom. I am happy in the good fortune of all, even more than in my own. For in my happiness for them lies inner freedom. I am happy in the good fortune of all, even more than in my own. For in my happiness for them lies inner freedom. Now we'll repeat again 3 times mentally, but taking to the superconscious mind. You can put your attention at the point between the eyebrows, gazing over there, eyes gently uplifted. I am happy in the good fortune of all, even more than in my own. For in my happiness for them lies inner freedom. I am happy in the good fortune of all, even more than in my own. For in my happiness for them lies inner freedom. Now, one last time, I am happy in the good fortune of all, even more than in my own. For in my happiness for them lies inner freedom. Mentally praying, all that I have and am is thine, Divine Mother. Divine Mother, dispose of it as thou wilt. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. We hope you can repeat the affirmation and practice them. until we meet next time, same day on Friday. Thank you. Joy to you.